Page 16, Octave Warm-Up. This is the first lesson in Unit 2. Now we're moving on. Okay. Hopefully you're comfortable with everything in Unit 1. Here they're talking about ledger lines. We've been using ledger lines all along because middle C is on a ledger line. It's the little line above or below a staff so we can have more notes. Because the 5 lines in a staff, that's not enough notes. That just covers these notes. The treble clef, that only covers up to here. There. Now we got a lot more notes than that, so we use ledger lines. You just pile them on. C's are handy. C's are a good benchmark or landmark to hang on to because they're symmetrical in a grand staff. Middle C's in the middle of a grand staff. That's why it's called middle C. One ledger line. Below treble clef, it's one ledger line above bass clef. And if they would put the staves a little closer together, that C would be in the middle of them. Well, the other C's are symmetrical too. Because this C, above middle C, that's in the next to the top space. But this C down here is in the next to the bottom space. They're symmetrical. If I go next, the C up here, that's 2 ledger lines above the staff. 2, remember that note, it's important. And if I go down here, that C is 2 ledger lines below the bass clef. The C's are symmetrical, so know the C's. They just come in handy. You should know all the notes actually to a point. As far as adding ledger lines, I only go up to about 3 ledger lines. I memorize the notes within 3 ledger lines. And more than 3, I don't bother memorizing them so much because I can't glance at them and know what they are. I get confused as to how many ledger lines there are. I have to stop and count them. I have to stop and figure it out. At that point, I just put in the note name and the music and I'm ready to go. So if I'm going to do that, I'm not going to bother to memorize them. But I can see 3 ledger lines. I know they're there. I don't have to count them. So I memorize those notes. So that's what I recommend when we get to those notes. Here we're just using these C's. C's, and then these, and the left hand does that one. That's all this is. And then for the second line, measure it's 1 chord, 4 chord, 5/7 chord, 1 chord. The primary chords. And you're using the C down here. Not going to bother with any. You can do this, and if you want, they have the pedal. If you want to use pedal, fine. You don't need it, but if you want to use it, put it down at the beginning right after you play the first note. The note goes down, and then the pedal. Note pedal. I'm not going to show the pedal if that's all they're doing, because you just hold the pedal down. That's all they're doing. I didn't go through the process. Actually, I sort of did, but when it's simple and short like this, I can pretty much do everything in one chunk. So I can do the notes, the rhythm, the fingering, the dynamics, articulation, everything, all at one shot. If it gets really more complicated, then I have to start splitting it up and I start learning it in bits and pieces. If you have any questions on the Octave Warm-Up, let me know. Otherwise, I'm not going to bother with it. It's not a lot to say there. You're just introducing you to the note C all over the place.